In Talent, Oregon, just steps from Broadway Alley, the lights come up. Rehearsal becomes performance. Process becomes story. And artists meet audience in the same room. This is Where Broadway Meets Talent.
And welcome to Where Broadway Meets Talent, where we explore the artists, the process, and the creative work behind the productions here at Camelot Theatre in Talent, Oregon. I'm your host, Brian O'Connor, and today's conversation is a little different and a little more personal. Coming up on April 14th, Camelot Theatre will present a special staged reading of The White Chip by Sean Daniels. This is a benefit performance supporting Recovery Arts Project and our local Oxford House chapter. And this is also a part of Camelot Cares, our commitment to using theater as a force for connection, conversation, and community impact. Joining me today is the producer of this event, Zach Virden. You probably know him from the many, many shows he's done, not only at Camelot, but around the Valley. Zach, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the basics. What is The White Chip, and what drew you to this piece as something Camelot should bring to the stage?
First of all, the name The White Chip comes from in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the 24-hour chip. So it's the chip you get when you start out. And what drew me to doing this play is it's really funny, first of all. It's really funny. It's also, it hits some really true and heartfelt and sincere moments as well. But something I love so much about this playwright, Sean Daniels, is that he has a sense of humor about even the tough stuff, even the more difficult moments. So
Okay.
So yeah, it's a joy. It's actually a very joyful piece about recovery.
So this isn't a full production. It is a staged reading. What makes that format the right choice for this particular story, in your opinion?
For this particular story, it works really well because it is so much one person with the support of two other actors coming in and out playing all the various characters he introduces in his journey. But it's really like he's standing and delivering his story, his testimony of his experience. And that's the part I'll be reading, and then I'll be joined by Beth Gudenrath and Alex Boyles, who will be playing characters like my boss, my wife, my mother, my father, different characters like that.
Right. She just played my wife in the last show we did together, so she makes a great wife. So that's fantastic.
She makes a great wife.
For audiences, Zach, who may not be familiar with the play, how would you describe the experience they're walking into?
It's fast. It reads fast. It performs fast. The play itself covers about at least 20-year timeline, if not more. It actually begins with him as a kid. I can't remember exactly how old he is when he has his first drink, but that's where the play starts, and then it goes all the way up to 2024 when the play was produced, I believe, for its second time off Broadway. And it's been produced in London since then, New York, and several places around the country. There's current productions going on, multiple current productions happening of it right now. So it's, but it's also been performed in rehab facilities. It's been performed for inmates. So it has quite a wide reach.
Mm-hmm. So this play deals with addiction, denial, and recovery in a very honest way.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think this story is important to tell right now?
Because I think everyone, whether they themselves are in recovery or possibly in need of recovery, or has been touched by it, with someone they care about in their life, be it a coworker, a friend, or a family member. I think it's a story for everyone in that sense. I hear so many stories about the people that we lose in our own community to particularly the fentanyl situation, and it's tragic that they uh, didn't give recovery a chance, because something I that I witness all the time in my own recovery when I attend meetings. I've been a sponsor myself. I have a sponsor, and I witness miracles on a weekly basis. People changing, turning their lives around, and finding new ways to cope that they never thought possible, and thriving. And it's incredible. And and I've heard the stories, like, of how low you can go, this particular story, actually, this is a theater artist, who, eh, for a long time, he truly believed that this was serving himself as an artist, and serving his career, especially with, getting money from donors. He was in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I knew him, because I was an apprentice at Actors Theater of Louisville and did a production with him. And he talks about how, it's bourbon country, and the bourbon's flowing, and donors, they get loose, and he gets money from them, and it's this whole charming circle, and then, ultimately how he starts to integrate that into every aspect of his life, and then it starts to take control and rule his decision making along the way.
Right.
It starts off as a source of freedom, and it ends up as a shackles,
One of the things that stands out about the White Chip is, and you kind of touched on this, it balances dark humor with very real emotional weight.
Yeah.
How does that combination help make the story more accessible, do you think?
In its pure honesty, I think that it's just absolutely honest. I think too that what it invites from the audience is, I'm standing here, right? The storyteller, I'm standing here sharing my story honestly. I'm uncovering my shame. I'm letting it all be seen so that I can let the light in, right?
Mhm.
And when we lead with that kind of openness, that kind of vulnerability, that kind of honesty, um, which can be hysterically funny, really. Um, we invite others to do the same. And whether or not you're an addict, it's certainly a trait that anyone would be better served by in their own life.
Right. And, you just talked about this, addiction is something that touches so many people, whether directly or indirectly. I don't think there's a family that has never dealt with it or saw it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hope that this performance resonates with the audience here in our community?
What I would love, what I always say to people, what AA did for me is, AA taught me to be resourceful. AA was not necessarily the answer to everything. There were other aspects of my life that needed therapy. There's a lot of self-reflective work that I needed to do, and a lot of personal relationship work that came out of it. But what AA did is, it said, there are options, there are solutions, and, and pointed me in the right direction. And all it took was me just showing up and saying, I've tried everything else, it didn't work, and I'm willing to try something new. And I would invite anyone to consider options if they're finding that they're at a place in their life where their solutions are no longer working for them and they're willing to try something new.
We're talking with Zach Virden, producer of our upcoming staged reading of The White Ship at Camelot Theatre. So this is also a benefit performance, which makes it even more meaningful. Can you talk a little bit about the organizations this event is supporting, Recovery Arts Project and Oxford House?
Yeah. So Recovery Arts Project is actually was started and is the executive director of it is the playwright Sean Daniels. And what they do is they support artists who are in recovery getting their stories told. So playwrights, actors, comedians, writers, all sorts of things, all sorts of artists in the theater um, getting opportunities to tell recovery stories on a larger scale. Um, and that's the first one that we're splitting that, and then the other half of whatever we raise is going to the local chapter of the Oxford House, which Oxford House has a really wonderful success rate as a I guess you would consider it like a halfway house, you know.
Mhm.
So it's sober living, but it is managed and run by the people living in it, you know, with a certain set of guidelines that essentially you have to stay sober and participate in recovery while you live in the house. Um, and like I know my sponsee came from Oxford House and he's doing wonderful. He actually went from being homeless on the Greenway a couple of years ago to he now owns a home, which is a wild turn of events.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So I just have a special place in my heart for the men and women who have gone through Oxford House and have found success in their lives.
What does it mean that to you that everyone involved, the artists, the performers, Camelot itself, is donating their time to make this event happen?
I think it's wonderful. I mean, first of all, you know, I feel so blessed to have the talent that I do have on board for this project. We have Karen Moore, who's the associate artistic director at CTP, who's going to be directing the piece, and it's just really great that people feel like, you know, people who I consider wildly talented in this field are wanting to show up and tell this story with me.
Right.
One that is quite personal for me in particular, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So a staged reading creates a very specific kind of intimacy that you don't get in a full-blown production sometimes. What can audiences expect from that kind of theatrical experience for those who've never come to a staged reading?
hmm Again, it's going to be largely focused on the words. So without a lot of staging, there's, you know, it's going to really jump beat to beat. It's gonna cruise through. So it's fast paced. It's about hearing the story, and it brings you into like a special relationship. I think in a stage reading with the playwright's voice themselves, and it's not so much about like the ego of the performer who's donned the costume and the set and all of the lights and everything to create this character, but really it's just sort of they haven't over rehearsed it yet. You know, the people telling the story they're really there to just make sure the words and the story travel as crystal clear as possible straight to the audience, to their ears.
Right.
Mhm.
For someone considering attending on April 14th, what would you say to invite them into this world?
Oh, I would say come with an open heart and an open mind. Do not be afraid to laugh because even the hard stuff is quite funny.
Right. And beyond just attending, what impact does their presence and support actually have?
I mean, the funds directly go to the continuation of artists in recovery telling stories, and hopefully the future of this becoming a little more mainstream. And as a topic, I guess. The funds will go to supporting these houses with furniture and household necessities and things that these people need as they're transitioning from generally like the streets or homelessness to more permanent housing.
Right. Well, Zach, thank you so much for helping bring this important story to our stage and for taking the time to share more about it today. I appreciate it very, very much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you.
Camelot Theater's staged reading of The White Chip takes place on April 14th. Tickets are $25, and all proceeds, as we've been talking about, will be donated directly to Recovery Arts Project and our local Oxford House chapter. This is more than a night at the theater. It's an opportunity to support real work happening in our community. So we hope to see everybody there. You can get your tickets online at camelottheater.org. And this is one night only, so I highly recommend you get your tickets soon. And that will wrap it up to Where Broadway Meets Talent. You can listen to the podcast on all major platforms, and you can watch the video version on YouTube. New episodes drop just about every week. I'm Brian O'Connor. Thanks for spending time with us, and we'll see you at the theater.